Hi, in this lab, we are going to learn about how to create a virtual machine on Azure Cloud Platform. In this lab, we'll be learning about creation of virtual machine, and this lab is basically for Azure Administrator Associate and administrators, Azure Administrator. So there are the lab details of this lab. In this lab, we'll be walking through the steps to create an Azure virtual machine. So we'll be basically creating Windows virtual machine on Azure, and the maximum time to complete this lab is 30 minutes. And here are the introduction of this lab. What is a virtual machine? So basically, a virtual machine is a type of on-demand scalable computing resource which can be created on Azure cloud. Also, it gives you more control over the computing environment. Means you can choose your operating system, you can choose your hardwares like RAM and disk, etc. And it also gives you flexibility of virtualization without having to buy and maintain the physical hardware that runs it. Means you can directly create it on the cloud and there is no worry of maintaining any physical hardware, right? So there is also a architecture diagram. Architecture diagram basically tells what a user is going to do, what a user is going to perform in that lab. So here is a user will be logging to the Azure portal, and then after logging to the Azure portal, user will create the resources. So first on Azure portal, user will create a resource group, and then inside a resource group, user will be creating a virtual machine. So this is basically the explanation of architecture diagram, right? After that, we have task details. So in task detail, we have several steps which will help us to complete this lab, help us to uh, deploy a virtual machine, right? So there is a first step which says signing into the Azure portal. And then we have another step which says create an Azure virtual machine. And in third step, we will be understanding the deployment details. And in fourth step, we'll be doing RDP into the virtual machine. RDP is basically remote desktop protocol. And then on the fifth step, we'll be doing the validation test. Validation test will help us in knowing that whether our services have been created or not. And finally, we'll be deleting the resources, right? So there are steps to launch the lab environment. Uh, Here, what we can do is to launch the lab environment, we have to click on the Start Lab button, and then we have to wait until the credentials are activated for the portal. And then once the environment is ready, we will be logging into the Azure portal. So let's get started and click on Start Lab. Let's check this and click on Start Lab. So it will basically take 10 to 15 seconds to get the environment ready and activate the credentials to log into the Azure portal. So let's wait for 15-20 seconds. Okay, now you can see that we have lab credentials ready. We have a username and a password, and we have also a resource group where we'll be creating our resources. So to start to log in to the Azure portal, first we have to click on Open Console. So let's click on Open Console. After clicking on Open Console, we have another tab which gets open in the browser. And then we have to copy the credentials and paste it in the another tab of Microsoft Azure. So let's paste it, the user ID, and then let's paste the password and then click on sign in. You can close this tab. Okay, now we have our Azure portal which is getting ready. Okay, you can see that we have successfully logged into the Azure portal. You can click on maybe later on this tab on this pop-up. Now let's see the steps which are mentioned in the lab to perform the lab. Now we have the task 2. In the task 1, it is basically mentioned that we have to log into the Azure portal, which we have already logged in. Now let's come to the task 2. In the task 2, there is a first step which is saying that click on create a resource button. So you'll be clicking on create a resource button, and then we will be entering virtual machine in the search tab. And then when we have virtual machine icon, we will click on that, and then we will click on create. So let's perform all these steps. Let's click on create a resource. After this, search for virtual machine in this search tab. Now you can see that here is a virtual machine. Let's click on this and then click on create. Now let's again move to the steps. Now in the steps, it is mentioned that there's a resource group, select resource group. So we'll be selecting the provided resource group, which is already there in the lab environment. In the instance details, we have to enter the virtual machine name. You can write a name as per your choice, or you can also copy this name and paste it there. You need to select the East US, and then in the availability options, we'll be selecting no infrastructure redundancy required. And in security type, we'll be selecting a standard, and in image, we'll click on see all images, and then we will select Windows Server. We can select the latest Windows Server, so there won't be any problem. And in sizes, we'll be selecting the standard B2S. So let's first perform these steps, and then we'll move further. So in the resource group, we will select the given resource group. In the virtual machine, we can copy the name, the given name, or we can mention the name as per our choice. So I'll copy the name and paste it here. And in the region, we will be selecting East US, which is already by default. And in availability options, we will be selecting no infrastructure redundancy required, right? And in images, we will click on see all images, or you can directly click on here and select the images, right? So we will select Windows Server 2019 data center, or you can select any image as per your choice. Now let's move to sizes. We will click on see all sizes, and then from all the sizes, we will select the B2S. You can see there is a B2S. Select this and then click on select. Now let's look at another steps. In the administrator account section, we have to enter the username and then password. So your username you can enter by your choice, and the password also you can enter by your choice. But as here it is provided VM1, so I'll be copying this and then pasting it here. So this is my username, and then password I'll give it by myself, so you can do the same. So this is my password. Okay. Now there are some option of ports. So before selecting all these things, let's move to the steps again. And then inbound port rules, we have to select public inbound port rules. And in that section, we need to select allow selected ports. And in select inbound ports, we have to select HTTP, SSH, and RDP. So let's perform all these steps. So in public inbound ports, it is already by default, and in select inbounds, we have to select HTTP, SSH, and RDP, right? So now again, let's look at these steps. We have performed the step number 3, which says fill the basic tab. And then in step 4, we have to click on next disk button and then select the following. So in the OS disk type, we have to select standard SSD. So let's click on next disk, and in the OS disk type we have to select a standard SSD. So let's do that. Okay, we have selected a standard SSD. Now let's again look at the steps. Now click on next networking button and then click on next management button. Leave all the values as default and click on next monitoring button and select the following details. In boot diagnostics, we have to select disable. So rather than doing next from here, you can also directly move from here as well. So in the monitoring tab, we have to select disable for boot diagnostics. Okay, we have done that. Now let's move to the steps again. Now the sixth step says click on review plus create button and then select create. Now we have already filled all the details for the virtual machine, and now we will select the review and create. Before selecting review and create, I would like to tell you some basic information. I would like to explain you all those things. So when we select the image is basically the operating system which you want for your virtual machine. right? And when we select the size of the virtual machine, the size, you can see in B2S we have two vCPUs, means we have two cores, and then 4 GB memory. 4 GB memory is basically 4 GB RAM. So this is how you can select the size of your virtual machine and the operating system as well, right? And from the ports you can allow the ports, like let's say if you allow RDP, means you can do RDP to your virtual machine, means you can also connect your virtual machine through RDP. And as the different ports, like whatever ports you want to allow, you can allow your ports, right? And in the disk, we have several options to select disk is basically your hardware where you store things. And if you select the premium disk, premium SSD, it will have some low latency. And if you select a standard SSD, it will have comparatively high latency than premium one, right? But for as of now we are selecting a standard SSD, right? Now we have selected each and everything. Let's click on review plus create, and then we will create this virtual machine. So now you can see that the validation is passed. We can means we can successfully create our virtual machine. Now let's click on create, and then it will start deploying our virtual machine. So it basically takes around 4 to 5 minutes to deploy the virtual machine. So let's wait for that. Okay, great. Now you can see that here are the deployment details. Now let's move to the steps. Here it is mentioned that here we can see that by configuration we made while creating the virtual machine, we have deployed a virtual machine with a network interface, virtual network, and a public IP address, and a network security groups, right? So while the resources are deployed, you can, let's move to the Azure portal. You can see that all the deployment details are present here. Means you can see that what are the dependent services, or what are the dependent thing which are attached to virtual machine are getting deployed here. Now when you click on deployment details, you will see that there is a network security group is being deployed. There is a public IP address attached to virtual machine. There is a virtual network, and there is a network interface, right? So these are the deployment details. Now let's move to the another steps. Now the task 4 says RDP into the virtual machine. So RDP into the virtual machine help us to connect to our virtual machine and perform the desired task. Now let's look at this step. In the search box at the top of the Azure portal, search for virtual machine, select Whizlab VM, and from the list, like select Whizlab VM from the list, and then click on connect, right? And then what next step says, select RDP and then click on download RDP file button. Note, if you are Linux or Mac user, so um, this is for Linux or Mac user, but so if you are a Linux or Mac user, you can go through these steps. But right now I'm performing this lab in Windows, so I'll be connecting it in Windows, right? So let me take you to the Azure portal. In the Azure portal, like apart from going, rather than like searching here your resource group and selecting your virtual machine, you can also go to your resource group from here. Like you can see that your deployment is complete. Your virtual machine has already been deployed. Now you can see there are subscription and resource group details. Now let's say you want to go to your resource group and select your virtual machine, right? So you can directly go to your resource group from here. And then in the resource group, you can see that there are services deployed which you have deployed in the previous steps. So there is a virtual machine. Let's click on this, and then what the steps were saying is, let's click on connect, right? And then again click on connect. After that we have a page which says download RDP, right? So we are going to do native RDP in our local machine. So let's select this, and then we'll have an option to download RDP file, right? So let's click on download RDP file. Okay. So like after downloading RDP file, make sure that you remember your username and password, because this will require when you log into your virtual machine, right? So my file has been downloaded. Now I'll open this. and then I'll click on connect. Now on this pop-up, on this tab, I'll have to enter my username. My username was VM1. And then in password, I have to enter the password which I provided while creating the virtual machine. You remember in basic tab, we have given a username and a password. So the same username name and password is required here. Now I've entered my username and password. Let's click on OK. Now on this tab, you have to click on yes. And then you will see that we will have our virtual machine. Let's wait for some time. Now you can see that our virtual machine is getting loaded. Yes, you can see that we have entered in our virtual machine. Now in this virtual machine, whatever task you want to perform, just like you perform on your physical system, you can do that. And this virtual machine gives you a lot of flexibility, like you can scale your virtual machine, whether it is a scale up or a scale down. And also you can make availability sets for your virtual machine. You can also deploy it in different availability zones. And also if you want to increase the disk size of your virtual machine, you can do that. So this is how flexibility we get on cloud, on Azure cloud, when we create resources on Azure cloud, right? But on physical system, you cannot do all of these things. Physical system are always set to like, let's say you have 8 GB of RAM, then it will always be 8 GB of RAM. But uh, on cloud systems, on virtual machines, you can always scale up your system or scale down your system. You can always increase your disk size and vice versa, right? So right now we are into our virtual machine, and you can see that we have all set of things, all set of applications which a Windows virtual machine have. Now let's close this virtual machine. Let's disconnect this virtual machine, and we will come out of the virtual machine, right? So in the virtual machine, if you go to the overview tab, from here you can restart your virtual machine, you can stop your virtual machine, or you can delete your virtual machine as well. But make sure when you create any service on cloud, it is always necessary that if you are not using any service, either you stop it or you delete it, because it will save your money, right? If you keep it always running, it will cost you too much. And but if you are mindful of your services, then if you stop it when it is not in use, then it will save a lot of money of yours. That's why we say cloud is very flexible, right? Now let's go to the steps on the lab document. We have already performed all these things, right? Now there is a information, there is a knowledge which says virtual machine can be snapshotted, allowing user to save the current state of the virtual machine and revert back to it later if needed. This feature is useful for testing or experimental purposes, right? Now we have task 5. In task 5, we have to do validation test. In validation test, what we get to know is whether our virtual machine have been created or not. So let's go to validate our lab. So the, let's go to here, and then let's click on validation. Then we'll have our validation page. Now here you can see that when you click on validate my lab, it will validate whether your virtual machine is created or not. So let's click on validate my lab. And then you can see that it says your virtual machine have been created successfully, right? So validation status is 100%, means all the services have been created. Now let's again go to the lab steps and scroll to the bottom of this lab document. And we have successfully completed task 5. And now let's move to the task 6, that is deleting the resources. Now, how we can delete the resources is we can go to the resource group and click on name of the resource group. We need to enter into this resource group, which where we have created all our services, and then we will select this checkbox, and then we will click on delete. and then all the resources will successfully get deleted. So let's perform this on the Azure portal. Let's go to the resource group. Okay, here it is showing. Let's go to the resource group, and in the resource group you will see that there are services which is being deployed, right? It is loading right now, so let's wait for a few seconds. Now you can see that there are these services which are being deployed in this resource group. Let's select all the services and then click on delete. It asks you to, okay, let's click on apply force delete for selected virtual machine. It asks you to enter delete here, so write delete and then select delete and then again select delete. So it will permanently delete your all the services which are present in that particular resource group. So let's wait for some time. You can see that deletion in progress. So you will have uh, succeeded deletions, failed deletion, and cancelled deletions. You can see the data here. So let's wait for a few seconds and then you will see that all the services are deleted. You can also click on refresh button to see if services are getting deleted or not. So I have clicked on refresh. You can see that few of the services has been deleted. The rest will also get deleted. It basically takes some time to delete, around 1 minute. Okay, it says that we have one failed deletion, but you can see that there are no resources available in the resource group. So I think all the resources has been deleted, and it might be an error from Azure side. So now let's go to the lab documentation again, and then you can see that we have also performed the delete task for this lab, and we have conclusion of this lab. We have successfully signed into the Azure portal and created a virtual machine. We have also understood the deployment details. We also connected RDP connection into the virtual machine, and we have also tested the validation, and we have also finally deleted the resources in the resource group. So this was all about how to create a virtual machine on Azure portal. Thank you so much for watching this video.
Whizlabs, success certified.